Hey again, what's going on? Juan here. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I apologize beforehand. I won't have the same energy I tend to have, but I want to make sure I talk about this week's Smackdown, and more so than Smackdown, make sure I talk about Talking Smack with the MIZ, which was outstanding, and it's obviously the thing that people are talking about the most this week, so make sure to drop your comment about what you thought about not just Smackdown, but definitely that segment, that magical moment that basically happened between Deena Brian and The Miz. Now, overall, I have to say this was definitely a step up from the SmackDown shows that we've had in the past couple of weeks. You know, we had a tremendous main event between AJ and Ziggler where AJ won. I'm not going to talk about that too much because I do think the storyline will unfold more next week, so Ryan will probably be talking about that, where you know, what happens now with Ziggler. His character is this whole redemption thing where, you know, he keeps losing whenever he's given opportunities, and it happened yet again. So kicking it off with the first topic I want to cover, thankfully Carmella turned heel. Now, I've said it in my reviews. I know Ryan has talked about it. We've mentioned it in the podcast as a whole. I don't understand why WWE had Carmella show up on SmackDown doing the whole thing she used to do with Enzo and Cass when they're on Raw, and she just looks like a cheap imitation of them, really obnoxious, and they finally got rid of that by just having her turn on Nikki Bella, who just recently returned, and it makes sense. You know, you have somebody that maybe people weren't going to be loving with the change, and instead of just repackaging her and keeping her as a you know, good female superstar, as a baby face, just do the whole heel turn, get it out of the way. You have somebody to really battle with Nikki Bella. They're going to have this multi-female superstar match for the Women's Championship, which we were able to talk about the different championships on the podcast. You know, they're pretty much color swaps, although I think we reached the conclusion that these actually look better. I prefer the silverish look for these new tag team championships rather than the penny one. Same thing with the Women's Championship. I kind of like it more than the Raw brand main Universal Championship. But as the topic about Carmella, I'm happy they're doing this. I don't believe she's going to become the first women's champion on SmackDown. I think that this is just, you need to establish the antagonist to the protagonist, which is clearly Nikki Bella. So whenever it is that we do get to some of our predictions, I do believe that Nikki Bella is going to be the person to win the championship. Now we go to the tag team championships. I just talked about the belts. I love the blue and silver look. Looks a lot nicer than the overly red Raw Championship. But with this tournament, they're giving multiple superstars an opportunity to really be able to showcase their talent. And I think it's challenging because you already know or get a feel of, okay, so the Ascension, Real Talk, they weren't going to win. And as we're seeing, it doesn't seem like their SmackDown run will have this magical effect where WWE is finally utilizing them in a different way. But they should, right? Because if you only have the obvious people win, you're not really establishing anything else, and you go right back to the situation or the problem that WWE has had for years with tag teams, where you have one or two tag teams that are very much solidified, people actually care about, but then the rest are just there to be food for them. And that just eventually becomes boring. We had the Dudley Boys, who we talked about on the show last week, where, you know, they're gone. And they came into the WWE. They did some fun things with Enzo and Cass. They had a little bit of involvement with the New Day, but you have this historical tag team, and they left, and you didn't really feel anything, right? It just felt like, oh, well, of course you will leave. You weren't doing anything. So I'm hoping that this does establish something which does lead up to the next topic. So Heath Slater is still a free agent ever since the draft, which took place over a month ago. And I love this. You know, we've said that ideally it would be great if he somehow went to shows like Evolve. I don't think Doty's going to go down that route, especially now that he's actively involved. But it definitely looks like he's going to become a SmackDown superstar. Now, he was talking to the GM about, hey, I like an opportunity at the tag team championships, and he was not able to really find a tag team partner to join this tournament. That is until the very man that gored him and is part of some political stuff, Rhino. He is actually just smiling. I love this moment where it's like, hey, Rhino's smiling, so hey, let's do this. Let's make this a thing. We're gonna become a tag team. So then Shane and Deena Brian tell him, if you win the whole thing, you win the whole tournament, you get a Smackdown contract, which I would hope he did, considering that he's going to become one of your champions if he does win the tournament. So, you would, maybe this is just me talking crazy, but you want to have your champion actually be part of your brand. I don't know. Like, let me know if you agree with that in the comments, but you have something that's not just which tag team is better. Because honestly, that's a little bit boring to me, where with this, you can establish something. People are getting behind Slater. There can eventually be some kind of heel turn with Rhino. I think Rhino is on SmackDown to do the very same thing he was doing in NXT, and that's awesome, which is, let's put on a good match. Rhino had an outstanding tag team match at NXT where he teamed up with Baron Corbin to take on the Revival, and that was an outstanding match. I highly recommend, if you don't check out NXT and you want to see what Rhino's capable nowadays, please check out that match. I forget the date. I'm terrible at dates, but it was a really good match nonetheless. So, best friends forever? Possibly. And the last topic I want to get to here before my voice just runs out, or one of the last topics before we get to the Miz, is that Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt are finally going to be going into a storyline. Now, it seems like this has always been the thing that people talk about, like, okay, eventually we're going to get an Orton-Wyatt storyline with the Viper. I think that in a perfect world, it would have been cool when Randy was, battling or feuding with the McMahons, punting Vince and everybody. Like, we had that Randy Orton. This is a very much toned down version of Orton, although I've been very happy with what he's been up to. I think he's been very entertaining, and he's back in the spotlight with the fact that the Lesnar match ended the way it did. Now, I do like the words that Wyatt spoke of, where Randy is just a man, but Wyatt is a god, and a god can never die. Now, Bray Wyatt, breaking news, you are a human being. You're going to die eventually. We're all going to die 100%. But in regards to the storyline, I think a lot can be done here. The issue, and this is always the first question any of us asks ourselves whenever Bray Wyatt's in a storyline, it's, so who's going to win at the end? Now, I know that jumping to conclusions is never the best outcome or the best option here, but with Bray Wyatt's track record, the man needs to win. But at the same time, you look at Randy Orton, and Randy could use that win as well, especially with what just happened with Brock Lesnar. But at the same time, that also makes it an interesting storyline because you have two guys that do need a win. So I'm thinking this is not a short-term storyline. This is going to evolve into something more. I can see them stretching this out to a Survivor Series and definitely longer. Now that we have the exclusive brand pay-per-views, but then we also have dual pay-per-views every now and then, this does give them an opportunity to really stretch out storylines and build up a really, really good physical match. I think Randy is going to have a lot of fun with this, and we're going to be able to see some of that 2004, 2005 Randy Orton that a lot of people, myself included, loved a lot. And Bray Wyatt is going to get that great match that he rightfully deserves because the man is very talented, but he's been dealing with so many obstacles to just really not look like he's going to become a top guy, but just be a top guy. It seems like whenever he's there, it's just something happens and it doesn't end up well for him. And now the main event, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. Raw, cool show. SmackDown, cool show. Cruiserweight Classic, oh my god, I love me that show. I can talk about that for hours. NXT is cool. Talking Smack, that is the show to watch. In 30 minutes, they develop more character development, more storyline, more depth for the roster than they do in 3 hours on Raw or in 2 hours on SmackDown. You have the Usos show up after, Naomi, after Carmella, I should say, came in and attacked Nikki Bella. And then the Usos are like, hey, what's happening here? You have Renee Young acting like this is real, this is happening. She's asking, like, is she gone? Is she gone? And it's really cool. And it goes to show how important acting is, right? Because if Renee Young, she does not get enough credit. I know, like, it's happening now where people are realizing just how talented she is. Somebody's doing a good job when you don't even pinpoint it. You just feel like, well, of course she's doing a good job, but she's just straight up asking the production crew, is she gone? And if it were anybody else that was not a good actor or actress, people will be making fun of her, like, this is fake, right? But at least I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking this, like, man, that's so cool. Like, she's able to really put over the fact that Carmella beat the crap out of Nikki Bella in a believable way, and it turned Carmella into a legitimate threat. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about The Miz. At almost 2 million views on WWE's official YouTube channel, The Miz went from being the champion that people forgot to being the champion that people are talking about the most. And you can dissect this in so many ways. So The Miz just came out at the very end of Talking Smack, much like he did a couple of weeks ago, about how Deena Brian is really overshadowing him by talking about the woman, about the tag teams, about everything else. But then, The Miz, these two have a storied rivalry all the way back to the early NXT game show type of NXT days. And The Miz is like, okay, I am your longest reigning champion. Like, before, Dean Ambrose and all that, Dean Ambrose is part of, like, the draft. Like, I am your real champion. Like, I made it so, like, this championship was carried over to SmackDown. I didn't lose to Darren Young and the championship went to Raw. No, it's here. But then Deena Brian, as a general manager, has the most unique role that I think we've ever had as a manager, where here's a former world champion that's defeated Triple H on the same night, won a triple threat match on the same night at the main event of WrestleMania. The last championship he held, as The Miz clearly pointed out, was the Intercontinental Championship, and he calls out Deena Brian, like, you promised to the fans that you would come back and reclaim this championship. And you see the look on Deena Brian's face where, like, this is not about, hey, what's a shoot, what's not. This is entertaining. It is on my TV, or in this case, I was watching the network at home here, like on my PC. This is on my PC, and I'm being entertained, and that's what I care about, right? And you see Deena Brian saying, like, I would love to, like, if they allowed me. And you see the emotion for somebody, once again, that we've said, like, Deena Brian's not the best talker. Apparently, you give him an authority role, and he runs with it. You just let him, he definitely pokes a person to, like, really rile them up. And a show called Talking Smack, and makes perfect sense. And then The Miz starts saying, like, why don't you quit? And eventually Deena Brian does walk off. And the surprising thing to me is that if you look at the thumbnail, it's a huge-ass picture of The Miz. The most important thing here was not what The Miz was talking about. The important thing was the facial expressions. You saw The Miz. The man was in the verge of tears. The Miz, for all the flack he gets about the Marine movies and the Santa Claus movies, he's an actual good actor. He is an actor. The man has been involved in reality shows. He knows how to manipulate a crowd to get them to his favor. The man has never been a babyface in the WWE for damn good reason, because he's so good at being a bad guy. But then here we go. He cut the biggest babyface promo in his career and did the one thing that WWE really frowns upon, or at least we've been trained to think that WWE frowns upon. Look at me. Look at the camera. He has this tight shot where you can barely see the man's neck. And you see the red eyes, the passion in there, talking about the championship run. This is kind of like the pipe bomb, where the pipe bomb was at first like, oh my God, CM Punk is talking about behind the scenes stuff. But eventually, he started talking about how he's going to walk out of Money in the Bank as the champion. Miz did a very similar thing. talk about some behind-the-scenes stuff to get people talking, as the view counts clearly show, but then bring it back to you. It's all about you. It's about how you love the fans. It's about the safe style, which with the Finn Balor injury, it is a very controversial topic to bring. You know, so many people say that The Miz is a boring wrestler, but he's still wrestling. You know, we can love Daniel Bryan, but his wrestling style caused him to be injured. Finn Balor, you know, with the Seth Rollins thing, he's out for over 6 months, and this is not a topic about who's responsible. It was clearly an accident. Finn Balor put his arm back. You know, he himself said it. It's kind of my fault. But, you know, as a wrestler, as the person, this is not something we can decide. Is it better to wrestle a safe style and you're able to wrestle 10 years without being injured, or do you wrestle a fun kick-ass style? You get injured when you just became champion, you're out for 6 months. It's a sad topic that nobody's going to get it right. Not one of us. We can talk about this for over 10 hours, and it is their bodies that are being put on the line. And ultimately, it's bodies that we don't end up seeing for months. You know, Cena tried to go for remember the springboard stunner when that was a thing? It stopped for a reason. You take risks. The risks don't necessarily pay off. So here's The Miz cutting not just the biggest babyface promo. He cut the most logical, straight up promo that you as a fan got to look at, and I did, and just went like, I can't really disagree with anything you said. So bravo, Miz. So I gotta say, I hope WWE is able to capitalize on this somehow. I don't know if they expected this. I don't think they expected this to go as viral as it did, to get people talking about The Miz in ways they never have. But they got to do something about this. I'm going to be very upset if they're just now, well, let's go back to just The Miz being The Miz. You know, is this going to involve a storyline where The Miz wants Deena Brian to come back and wrestle, and they start teasing this match, whether it happens or not? I don't see a lot more scenarios. You know, like, it's a former champion talking about a former champion, both held the IC championship. Their storied rivalry speaks for itself. They've had multiple battles in the past when Deena Brian, you know, first had a singles run. So I would like to get your thoughts about this. Do you think WWE is going to tease the possibility of Deena Brian versus The Miz happening? Let me know in the comments, as well as what was your favorite thing about that segment between Deena Brian and The Miz. For me, it was simply the close-up and the screenshot that I did turn into this thumbnail for this video that speaks for itself. The Miz, I applaud you. You're still not my favorite wrestler. That's still, like, I can't pinpoint my favorite Miz match because I really don't have one, but I definitely care more about The Miz, way more than I have in, like, years, since, like, the main event match he had at WrestleMania, which was terrible, but at least the build-up video package was pretty awesome. And gang, if you like this, make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and if you want to go the extra mile and support what it is we do, you can do so by pledging at patreon.com/Byte That. We have just one more week. For everybody that pledges for any amount will get a guaranteed entry into a WWE Shop shirt giveaway. One person will win a shirt valued at up to $25 from WWE Shop, and we will ship it on to you. You get some behind-the-scenes updates. Gold members receive early access to different videos, which we have something super cool coming out this week after August 28th. When I'm recording this video, something we've never done before. We're looking forward to your feedback. It's going to be something very fun. You may hate me, you may laugh at somebody else, but it's going to be a very fun time. And check out all of these different videos on screen. We have square roundtables, and we have different gameplay videos where we play classic wrestling games. So until next time, thank you for watching, and we will be back with tons more right here on Byte That.